Yeah.
Welcome to Voice of Guo Media. This is our English channel. My name is Joan. Today, we are very honored to have Kevin and Michael on this program. The topic of
all those kind of things. So I think it's just a little bit weird for me.
Right. Michael, do you have any experience you want to share with us?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it was very impressive that Kevin just shared with us, and I remember that when I come here, there are a lot of the Chinese student institutions. And also they have very close connections with the Chinese embassy, especially when they are hosting the some Chinese, for example, the Chinese New Year's festive gala, and it was also hosted by and supported by the Chinese embassy, and also the programs, the hosties, they are selected from the students, and also they are talking with the institutions, and also they have I think they have connections with the embassy. And I really think that this is a kind of an influence that the embassies influenced in many ways, and also especially in the Dallas programs. I mean, whether they are dancing, or whether they have any programs to show the Chinese culture, that they have a tendency like to show the Chinese culture in a party's way. That means in my memory that sometimes they say something like to please the party, and to say something political right. That's my image on this kind of institution.
Right. And
That's right.
My impression is like first, they remind you that you're still being watched, even you're overseas studying, right? But the big brother's still watching, right? And secondly, it's they ask each other to monitor each other, right? So if you say or do something against CCP, others may report this to the Students Association, and you'll be in trouble, right? Your parents may know. I saw this on newspaper, then their parents will call them and say, don't do such and such things, then because apparently the Chinese police knew what was going on here. So
yeah, that's true.
It's like they're policing people overseas, policing Chinese students. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. And do you have more to say?
I just got two examples. I mean, for regarding the Students and Scholars Association, because there are actually two examples. Well, that I remember very clearly. The first example is like one of the students in, I would say, in this association, he had some problems with the leader of this association. But this guy, he had some very good, I would say, foreign friends, right? And he participated a lot in the activities organized by those foreign students. So the leader of this association, can you imagine what he did? He wrote a letter, I would say, to the embassy. I mean, to say that he's a spy and those kind of things. And then, his parents, I mean, in China, they got warned, I would say, because the police knock onto their doors and ask their parents about what your children, and those kind of things, and which actually made them very afraid. So this is a real example, because everybody in here, I mean, they know about this. Yeah, that another example is like because basically, as you can see, the picture on the I mean, here in front of this building. I mean, this is actually this picture actually shows the Chinese Students and Scholars Associations. They participated in some activities organized by the local, I would say, Communist Party. So, and they were very active in that. So can you imagine this? Because I saw those. Well, I personally I participated in these activities as well, because I saw how they perform and how they interact with their, I would say, the local communist peers. It's absolutely mad. I can't imagine. Even today. I mean, there are still so many students. They're like brainwashed, and they still have a very high, I would say. I mean, expectation for the communism and those kind of stuffs. It's really fair. I mean, it makes me so afraid, to be honest.
Right. They also how to like propaganda overseas, right? So use the student say
Yeah.
I know they send students to oppose the protests done by, say, Tibetans or the Uyghurs. So on one side of the street, the Uyghurs or Tibetans were protesting, but on the other side, the Chinese students were organized to oppose their protests. So this is, they're using Chinese students to further their agenda and their brainwash and the propaganda overseas. So this is not acceptable. This has to be stopped because they're using you guys to spread the communist ideology.
Yeah. That's true. Because from the first story is like they try to warn, I would say, those students, I mean, to stay close, I would say, with the association. If you don't do so, if you make too many foreign friends, then we're going to let your parents know about it. And the police, they're going to just, knock on your door, which is, well, I would say these things is really threatening. It's really threatening.
Right. And I know Confucius Institution is also a vehicle, a tool they use, right? So yeah, that might be related to our next slide, which is called interference in China-related research. So Kevin, please.
Actually, because as a researcher, I have to, well, frequently I I read articles, I mean, related to China, and especially when it comes to arts and humanities and economics and those kind of subjects. So I was very surprised to learn about the Cambridge University Press. I mean, they post sensitive journal articles in China, I would say, at the request of Beijing. Obviously, it's like because according to I I read about these reports. It's like and I was really shocked because I thought that if there are some kind of I would say academic taboos in China that the scholars cannot touch, right? Then if they are studying overseas, because they choose to study overseas because in those countries, I would say, where they have freedom of speech and freedom of publication and freedom of thinking, they can actually conduct better researches. And we have seen that many scholars, I mean, who are doing research in or overseas, their articles are very productive, and they contributed a lot, I would say, insightful views, I would say, regarding China. So this time, I would say, Cambridge University Press, that's the most well-known and respectable publication, I would say, institution. But even, I would say, at the request of Beijing, they even blocked, online access to certain journal articles. I would say this is really threatening. I mean, sounds like very ridiculous to me, because it will make me feel like, are there any places where I can conduct, the research, and based on my interest? Because I don't want to conduct research, I would say, dictated, I would say, because I don't want the authorities to define the research area that I'm interested in. I just want to do the research that I interest the most, right? If they, because obviously what they're doing is like they're trying to squeeze the freedom of speech. I mean, for those scholars, even for the Western scholars, which is, I would say, this is really threatening for me.
So I think it sounds like they block the freedom of research now and around the world. And do you remember what topics for the articles that they want to block?
Yeah, it's like probably those subjects. Well, I would say.
You mean
Yeah.
like sensitive political, subjects like Tiananmen Square or anti-CCP?
Yeah, or things like, those taboos like Cultural Revolution, Tibet, Xinjiang, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. But I would say basically the scholars, what they're doing, these are all pure academic works, right? Then if they just, I would say, delete, their articles, they actually politicized. I would say, how do I say? They're actually, well, it actually reveals that the authorities, they were afraid of this, right?
They have censorship in China, but now they are exporting their censorship to other research institutions in the world. This is not acceptable. And then surprisingly, why did British yield to such authoritarian government, right? This is
Probably another question. Yeah, probably they sponsor, I would say, and they also sponsor their research.
I think it sounds ridiculous because what the researchers talking about in the article, if it's not true, then the government have the right to stand up to say, okay, what is the fact and what is happening? And if it is true and they block the information, they even delete the article, delete the information. This doesn't make any sense. The only sense that I see is that they just wanted to shape their images, to better their images in their way, to actually to block the truth, to block maybe the truth is negative, and in my image maybe they were doing something bad that they want to block.
I agree with you. Or it's like they are trying to send another clear warning, I would say, to the scholars. Do your research. You can research, but within my definition, you cannot, I would say, you can think, but I would say within some limits. And the limitation is actually set by, I would say, the CCP. That's very ridiculous.
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Okay. I'm sure we can talk more about this research. Maybe we can even make a standalone program on this. For now, let's move on to the silent invasion in the name of cultural exchange. So that's our next slide.
Yes. Well, actually, this is a book written by an Australian scholar, and I learned something about his experience when he was trying to publish his book. He said he sent his book to several publication houses, but those publication houses, they all told him that, well, it is kind of sensitive, and we have to delay, the release of your book. Can you imagine? This is like that's very ridiculous. But also here, I want to say is like the silent invasion in the name of culture exchange. Here we can see there's like the Sydney Opera House and an introduction of a Chinese opera called the Lake Honghu. I don't know if our foreign audience know anything about this opera. This is actually and if you and you can find it on Wikipedia. this opera actually it's well, according to Wikipedia, this is a true story, and it's about it, and he tried to tell, I would say, the audience a story about the CCP in their early struggle. I mean, with the KMT. So in the 1930s, and it's about the landlord in a village called Peng Ba Tian, and it's about when the Red Army, when they started the Long March, when they left this village, and this landlord, he tried to take advantage of I would say, the Red Army's departure, and those kind of stuff. It is actually, I would say, this propaganda is like they're trying to praise, I would say, violence, and they're trying to place, like, to praise is like class struggle and those kind of things. So it's, well, based on its own content, I would say it is actually it is actually violent, right? But they try to make it in a very peaceful way, and they redesign. I would say they refabricated the entire story, like, I mean, and turn it into an opera. And they try to, I would say, present this opera in one of the most famous, I would say, performing, I would say, place. I mean, the Sydney Opera House, and they try to sell the tickets to the Australians, to the local people, so that they, in the
So it's
name of, culture exchange.
right. So that Honghu opera is notorious. Even in China, it's very like an old-fashioned Cultural Revolution style of opera, right? Even in China, nobody want to see it, but somehow they have the show in Sydney, in the free world, on the stage of this
Yes.
free world. And I think it was all cancelled, right? So thanks to
later cancel. Yeah.
Chinese that demonstrated against this event in Australia. So eventually this program was cancelled. But you can see how bad things can get. And I saw that in Paris, they showed this 红色娘子军,
that's another. It's like another opera event. I would say invented during the Cultural Revolution. Because I think my parents, well, and I would say, well, and some friends, they told me it's like during the Cultural Revolution, people can only watch 8, I would say, operas. It's like, so you can only watch these kind of things.
But now, they still show it, and on the world stage, and even in famous cities like Paris and Sydney. Yeah. So.
I'm just curious that what they are showing, like in the Lake Honghu and in many other like the movies, programs, are they really true? I mean, in my memory, that what they are showing is that how they, as a party, as a group, how they fight for its citizens, how they fight for the little guys in the country back in that time. But it turned out to be that they, I mean, I just doubt that whether it's true or not.
You mean the stories?
Yeah, the stories, and what they try to show is how glorious that they are, and how great they are. But I mean, for example, they promise to give the rights to its people, to the little guys, to the working class. But as we can see that it's not really the case. And also I think it's really a kind of deliberate culture exporting case that they do to the overseas.
Yeah, that's true. it's like they're trying to, I would say this time, export, I would say those fake and fabricated, and very violent, I would say, truths. They try to wrap it up with, the modern performance style, and with, the music, and with, the style that they think the Westerners kind of understand. But you see, the core of this opera was actually based on class struggle, on violence, and on bloodshed of one class, and I would say, and the discrimination against the side that lost, I would say, the battle or the revolution, or the so-called the revolution they call, or things like that. So I would say it is actually, well, if the Western audience, if they understand, I would say, the core of those, or the real stories behind these, I would say, performances or operas, I would say they would definitely found it to be very disgusting and very ridiculous.
Right. So they were brainwashing operas or ballet back in the 60s or 70s. Now they are
Yes.
showing on the world stage. It's not acceptable. And let's move on to our next topic. Sorry, because of the
Yeah.
time.
Let's
We
let's
spoke
start
about
up. Yeah. Let's hurry up. Let's hurry up.
the interference in Hong Kong and Taiwan's internal affairs. So, Kelly.
Actually, because before, I would say, coming to study overseas. When I was in China, I knew very little about, what is actually happening outside, because, and especially those, I would say, issues relating to Taiwan and Hong Kong. Then when I had the chance to study overseas, I came to realize, there's so many. I was actually exposed to so many articles and reports, regarding Taiwan, and Hong Kong. But something that made me really, I would say, that makes me really feel threatening is like, it's a report made by New York Times. It's about a Buddhist temple, as we can see in this picture, in Taiwan. It's now, as somebody, I would say, obviously he's a radical, I would say, communist, worshiper, right? He plants China's flag into this Buddhist temple, and he changed this temple into a communist shrine. And as we can see, there are more pictures about, and describing what he's been doing, inside this temple. And there are Chinese flags, and there are, portraits of the party leaders, and they are like, full of the propaganda slogans such as, serve the people, and those kind of stuff. Because, well, it's actually, and it's looked like, at first, and it looks very funny to me, but later I found out, oh, well, these guys, I think they're really crazy. They're really mad, because we don't know his real intention. Is he really interested? Well, is he really trying to, I would say, get the attention of the public, of the media? Or he's doing this, I would say, on purpose, which means probably some people, or I would say probably CCP, ask him, and I would say request him to do so. I would say, and there's a word like to stir up, the atmosphere, so that people in Taiwan, they know about this, and they know that, the CCP is also has its presence in Taiwan. So Taiwanese people, just be careful, or they're trying to convey this message to the Taiwanese people.
Right. If we follow Milesguo's exposing of the Chinese intentions towards Taiwan and Hong Kong, you have answers to all these questions, right?
Yeah. Now I fully understand. It's like they're just trying to convey a message to the people in Taiwan and Hong Kong, to tell them, here, the CCP is here. we have our presence in Hong Kong and Taiwan, and we also hold very tight grip on, onto this, on Taiwan and on Hong Kong. So
yeah, I think I agree that in the picture we see, it's ridiculous that in a temple, and I see some soldiers standing in front of the temple, and also several the red flags, not several, I mean a dozen, and also this is an infiltration that created by the CCP, and I agree with you that they just infiltrate and then infiltrate more gradually, and then to get let the Taiwanese get numb of their influence. Actually, they just want to like the way they rule the mainland China to just influence the Taiwan.
Right. Yeah, this is a very big topic, and Milesguo has very comprehensive analysis regarding CCP's infiltration of Taiwan. But as ordinary people like us, we also notice all these events, right? Like the temple and other election-related events in Taiwan that's showing CCP's influence. Yeah. So the next, the next slide is about Huawei. And this is one of the big topics recently, because President Trump just signed an executive order to ban Huawei products in the US. But Huawei is definitely a tool for collecting and stealing information in the West. It's a weapon. So Kevin, please elaborate more.
yeah, I agree with you, Jane, because before, or those, the Western media, before they covered, more information about Huawei, before they revealed more information about what Huawei has been doing, I was trained actually at that time, or people were all trained to believe that this is, the pride of the China, the pride of the Chinese people's intelligence, the pride of their diligence, and pride of, the excellent organization, I would say, of the CCP, right? But then I came to know, but the more I came to know about Huawei, the more I feel like, terrifying, because as we can see, even though Huawei has experienced, it's now being blocked by the Western, almost the entire Western world. But it seems that it is developing very well here in one of China's biggest neighbor, I would say Russia. These are all come from, the reports made by the Russian media. As we can see here, you can see Meng Wanzhou is sitting, I would say, with Putin, and here Huawei in Russia, they're even trying to recruit the local talents to participate. I would say to work for them, because obviously we know, Russia. This country, they produce very good engineers, programmers, and mathematicians. So now Huawei is trying to recruit these people to work for them, because as we can see here, they have a Russia research center. Huawei has a research center here in Russia, so that probably based on their, I would say, the strategy of Huawei is like they are trying to recruit, the people, intelligent people. Or people with high skill, that are well trained people in mathematics, in coding, in ciphering, or those kind of subjects to work for them. So that's why we can see Huawei. It's not only trying to, probably Huawei they're trying to recruit these people from Russia, which is something absolutely, some very shocking to me. And also here we can see even before the Western countries were talking about the threat of the 5G network provided by Huawei. This article, it's in 2014. It already reported about Huawei. It's going to participate in the 5G construction in Russia, and it is going to cooperate with a Russian local mobile phone operator. So can you imagine that? And it seems from this article, the Russians they welcome Huawei and they want them to come to Russia. So can you imagine that?
Right. Their infiltration and influence is everywhere. And because of all these success the CCPs had overseas, so their diplomats became more and more arrogant. Then on the slide number 7, you have remarks from the Chinese diplomats in right. So they're very proud of their success, obviously built upon the vast wealth still they had stolen from the world, right? They thought that was their own achievement. But now with the trade war, we know that American contributed many of the wealth, right, gained by China.
That's true.
Now, yeah, so, yeah, Kevin, talk about these arrogant diplomats. Is that Wang Yi?
Yes, it's like China's foreign minister, because this was, this I came to know this news not by myself. It's actually my friends, I would say, from Canada. He sent it to me, and he said, "Look at what your prime minister is doing." And I read about this article, and I found, oh, that's really, I don't know how to say to them, because normally, as we can see uh, historically speaking, I would say the Chinese high-level officials, they're not very willing to be interviewed by the Western media, right? Because sometimes they are one reason is like they don't speak very good foreign languages. Another reason is like they are afraid of them, right? But this time, as we can see, the foreign minister is like, he was and you can see what he said to his reporter. I mean, when this reporter touched, I would say, those taboo in the Chinese media, such as the human rights in China, and he became very arrogant, and he just, it's like he was shouting back at her, like because he said, "I have to say your question is full of prejudice against China and arrogance. I don't know where that comes from. This is totally unacceptable," and those kind of stuff. And also he said, like, other people don't know better than the Chinese people about the human rights condition in China, and it is the Chinese people who are in the best situation, in the best position to have a say about China's human rights situation, right? And he was like, I would say, I would expect our diplomats to be polite and to have more patience, when answering those questions, because yeah, and because what I read about, he's from his replies is like, I know he was absolutely furious, and I know that obviously he was trying to, I would say, to hide some truth, right? If he is confident enough, he wouldn't say such words, right? He would just reply and directly, like Mr. Milesguo, or like, or answer it in a more diplomatic way. But nobody would expect, a diplomat, I would say a well-trained, high-level diplomat, to say such words, right? Right?
Yeah, I agree that I think it also seems very ridiculous that as a diplomat, as a high-ranking official, that he represent the government, represent actually the country. And when he faced the question, I think it was just a question from the journalist, and she just asked that the current human rights conditions situations in China, and suddenly the minister got very angry, and he shouted out loud to say it back, to say that the journalist question is a prejudice. But in my view, that is not a, of course it was not a prejudice. It was just a question, because they are the Western people, they are curious, so they have they have to ask, and that's very simple. But he just shouted out loud like I mean, it seems very ridiculous and very, as you say, not confident at all.
Right, because they treat Chinese people like slaves.
Yeah, he seems like
That's
he's
true.
he was a prestigious figure or prestigious officials that I mean, actually can shows that what they are doing when they faced its own citizens.
Right, and this
That's
was
true. I agree.
yeah.
I agree.
Many Chinese people laughed at his replies, and they turned this into jokes. they wrote different versions to mock his remarks. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm beating up my children, like I'm beating up my wife, so it's none of your
Yeah,
business.
that's true. That's true. That's true. I can maltreat them. I can do whatever I want to them, but you don't say anything about them. But you can't say anything about that.
Right, right. This is a very true
Yeah,
picture
and
of
you have to, and it seems like they say that, okay, believe what I'm saying, and just to believe it, and don't question.
right. They can say that to the Chinese, but they cannot say that to the world. It's not acceptable.
I
So that's
think
why we
yeah. Sorry. I think it's just like another warning they're trying to send to the Western media. They would like to say, well, listen to us, report what we want you to report, right? It's like another message they're trying to convey to the Western media. If you don't report what we want you to say, then you get a response. Then we're angry, right?
right. Yeah. So So the Chinese threat is present and clear. So we now have a committee to address this present danger from the Chinese Communist Party. And we'd like to thank these two brave young men to come on this program to talk about these threats, because they are still Chinese citizens, if I recall.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
they are risking themselves despite of all these threats. So you earn our respect. I'm very honored to be able to talk with you today. And there are many, many such brave people working at Voice of Guo Media. This is a platform that participated by people all around the world. We would like to invite you to join us. It's on Discord, and the link can be found at the bottom of the YouTube channel. And we'd like to conclude our show today, but because of the time concerns, and we have obviously more to say. So please stay tuned, and hope you join us next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my honor.
Yeah, it's my honor, and I think
Thank you, Jane.
thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Jane. And I think it is a great honor to be here to attend this program today. And I think we are all the followers of the Milesguo, and as he's doing the live streaming to spread the truth, and it is really great and can make can inform us the real truth. So if you are also a follower of the truth of the Milesguo, you can hit the bell, and subscribe our English channel. And I think we wish to see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my honor. Thank you. Thank you. Thank Jane. Thank Michael. And thank everybody working for this cyber revolution. Thank you.